Jarton, and today I'm going to talk about ring modulators. It's probably one of the strangest things you can do with music or with sound. I've got a few ring modulators here. I have this very, very nice ring modulator. It's the Moog ring modulator. Loads of buttons and switches and little sockets to play with. And what's more, it behaves itself, so we love it. But just by way of contrast, I've got to show you this. That is a very nasty ring modulator. I made this one when I was at school 40 years ago, and if I'm feeling brave, I'll turn it on for you later and show you what it does. Hey, 40 years ago and the rest. Anyway, let's have a little look at this one. First of all I'm going to put into it is a very, very plain tone coming off this keyboard. Here we go. Moog Voyager. The keyboard itself is doing nothing fancy. It's just putting out a plain note for you there. I'm now going to click in the ring modulator. Sorry, you can see that. That is a frequency control. I'll explain what that's about in a minute. That's the classic ring mod sound, is that? I love it. It's also got a low range. Oh, love it to bits. Right, what's happening is that the sound is coming into there and it's being modulated by another sound which is called a carrier wave. Now, you can use any other sound as a carrier wave, but this thing built in has got its own little oscillator to act as a carrier wave. And if I hold that there, I don't know if you can you see that? There's loads of sockets on the back here. There's two there. One says carrier in, so I can put a separate carrier wave in, but that one says carrier out. So in fact, what I can do is if I put that in there, you can hear the oscillator. This is the actual oscillator inside the machine. There's his little oscillator, and then if I turn the frequency control, there we are. Really nice wide ranging oscillator that. Now when this thing's working normally, you don't hear that oscillator. All you hear is what it's doing to the sound source. So when I say it's modulating, what does modulating actually mean? To demonstrate, I'm going to play the guitar. I'm not very good at the guitar, I'm sorry about this, but it does make things clearer. Here's my guitar, so I'm armed and dangerous. Just play a nice straight chord to start with, so that's with nothing happening, okay? I'm now going to put in the ring mod, and it's got a very sort of slow carrier oscillation here. You get a nice tremolo effect, yeah? Now the thing is, my amp can do a tremolo effect. If I just turn it up here, you should be able to hear the same effect here. So what's the difference between the ring modulator and the tremolo? Well, it becomes a bit more obvious when we make the tremolo faster, if I can do this. Yeah, got it. Okay, let's have a little look. With the normal tremolo, the pulses of sound start coming so quickly, they start to blend together, and in fact, if it was much faster than that, you wouldn't even hear the different pulses, you just hear a continuous tone. But with the ring modulator, if I speed things up, crazy stuff starts to happen. All right. Can you hear that ugly musical note coming in at the bottom? Listen. So what's going on? I'm going to try and explain how modulation works now by showing you some waveforms. Lucky you. This is going to be a little bit weird, but bear with me, okay? Imagine that's the waveform coming off the guitar, okay? That's the vibration of the string represented as a waveform. As it goes through a tremolo pedal, the tremolo turns the volume down, so it effectively flattens the wave out, and then it makes it louder again. So the tremolo pedal is doing that, yeah? What the ring modulator does is every time the carrier wave goes through a complete oscillation, rather than just making it quieter, it actually flips the wave right over. So you get the inverted wave. It's 180 degrees out of phase if you want to be technical. So it keeps doing that. And when it does that, it starts to produce a whole load of extra harmonics. These harmonics are governed by a very simple piece of maths. I've given you physics, I'm giving you maths now. I bet you're glad you're watching this. Okay, let's have a look at the ring modulator. Here she comes. There's your audio input going in there. There's the carrier wave coming in, and there, of course, is the output. Now, in the output, you can hear what's called the sum and difference frequencies. To give you a simple example, let's suppose we've got 400 hertz, a nice pure tone of 400 vibrations a second as the audio input, and the carrier wave is 250 hertz. We get two tones coming out. One is the sum, where you add them together, so we hear a tone of 650. We also hear the difference, so you take the numbers apart, and you also hear a tone of 150 there. Now, the weird thing is, although that's a very simple mathematical link, musically, the two tones coming out might have no relation at all to the two tones going in. What we're going to do is have a look at the guitar again and see how that can affect things. Right, at the moment, the ring modulator is in bypass. I'm just going to play 4 notes on the guitar. Listen. I'm now going to play exactly the same 4 notes. I'm going to click in the ring modulator, okay? Here we go. The actual note the carrier wave is tuned to is actually this. The carrier wave is playing that note inside the machine. You can't hear it, but the reason that note sounds so clean is because that's the same as the carrier wave. If I bend it, you hear the weird stuff starting to happen? Here we go. Love it. I've got to admit, I find it pretty frustrating putting a guitar through a ring modulator, because if you put in one note and get the wrong note out, I have enough trouble playing the right notes as it is without having this thing messing it up for me. But there are other things this thing can do, and here's the best known of all. Here we go.
Exterminate! Exterminate! We are the daleks, and Indifference comes through a ring modulator. Ring modulator.
Yeah, it's true. Apparently, when the BBC first did the Dalek voices, it was done on a Moog ring modulator just like this one, but with a much better actor doing the voice than me. That's why it sounded so freaky. Myself, though, the best thing that a ring modulator does isn't just doing silly effects. It's creating crazy waveforms. And I'm going to show you one of my old synths now, which has got a ring modulator built in. This is the legendary ARP Odyssey. It's a cracking machine. It's got 2 oscillators, and this machine is actually quite unique. It's the only vintage synth I know which is duophonic, which means you can play little 2-note chords. If you so want to, okay. Nice toy. Each oscillator will offer you a sawtooth wave like this, or a square wave. And you can vary the pulse width of the square wave as well. So there's already a lot of options, but when you've been playing even with this machine for a long time, after a while you think, I wish there was something a little bit more for the filter to chew on. Haha, this thing's got it. Let's just have a closer look now at some of the switches and sliders that there are on the ARP Odyssey. These 2 sliders here are the mixer controls for the oscillators. So if I want to turn the volume down, I just pull those down there. These are the switches to choose between the waveform, sawtooth and square. But have a look at this one here. If I push this one up, it's going to give me noise. Woohoo! That's really nice for wind and wave effects. And if you tune the filter correctly, you can even play a tune just using noise. But look at this. Click that down. This is the game changer. This machine has got a ring modulator. Yeah, here we go. Now what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to make the notes keep playing. Just going to keep repeating there. These things here are the pitch controls for the 2 oscillators. Now the 2 oscillators are going into the ring modulator together, and one is modulating the other. So to get different waveforms, all I got to do is change the frequency interval between the oscillator. Oh, listen to that. Between the oscillators. You get, God, that's superb. And you get a far bigger range of waveforms than you get just from the square and sawtooth outputs of the oscillators. Listen to that. That is great. superb. What's happening here, what's so good, is because both the oscillators are being powered by the keyboard, they move up and down together. So whatever note you play, you're still getting the same waveform, but you can actually play a tune. And because this keyboard's duophonic, it means you can also do little sort of sound tricks. Oh, listen to that. I love that, isn't that great? It's like a sort of old Hammond organ on steroids or something. It's fantastic. Do you know what's really sad as well? With these vintage synths, you never ever get the same sound twice. I could take a photograph of that and try and reset it, but because, particularly with the ring modulator, the settings are so fine, I'll never get this noise again. But hey, you only live once, live for the day. Really, really like that. Anyway, speaking of never getting the same sound twice, have a look at this machine up here. This one is my Korg MS-20, and years ago, I was trying to get a church bell sound on it, and it was great, and I've been trying to recreate it. Sort of spooky church bell. It's never sounded quite as good as the original. I'm still tweaking with it, but let me show you what I've got to do. This is my patch for the church bell. The green right here, all this is doing is actually making the note repeat, not doing anything terribly clever. But over here, if you look really carefully, you can see these big switches here are the sounds that you can get from this machine, the oscillator outputs. But look, there's a ring modulator option. That's the thing. If I'm just going to not use the ring mod, you just hear the two oscillators. Nothing like a church bell. A church bell's got really complex harmonics. The only way you can do it is with a ring modulator. I've got to say, I've not got this sound right yet. These settings are all really, really critical. The filters, the envelope shapers, everything. But the most critical one is to get the pitch difference between the oscillators right. Completely changes the tone of the thing. Hours of trying to do this. Oh, that's a different one. That sounds really lonely. Gosh, I like that. I don't know which one I like better, actually. Let's go back there. It just shows you how important the ring modulator is. There we go. That's it. Oh, well, a few more hours of twiddling on that one thing. Listen to this. I'm still loving this. Right. I'm going to try and get this beast working for you, okay? Just to show you what the bits are, that's actually the old retro kind of power supply. And inside here are three components. So we're looking at, it's wonderful. These modules were built by a firm called Dewtron in Bournemouth about 40 years ago, I think. Really good bloke, built all these things encased in resin so you couldn't nick his circuitry. But if you bought these things, you could build up your own synthesizer. Let's just have a closer look. That one there is a ring modulator 1. That is a second ring modulator because one ring modulator is never quite enough for me. And that's an oscillator to help drive the whole system along. But if you look really, really carefully, look at all my schoolboy wiring. Isn't that beautiful? With that sort of skill, I could have built a space shuttle. I'm going to put an input into here, yeah. That's actually a volume control for the input, but I keep that on maximum. That's the frequency of the oscillator. That's the phase, but I don't use that much. That's the output of ring modulator 1. That's the output of ring modulator 2. There's also 3 switches here. Can you see the 3 switches? What you can do with those is you can switch how the ring modulators select their inputs. Here's a little diagram showing how it all links up. Now follow carefully. The audio input will go into ring modulator 1. You can also put the audio input into the carrier input and so it modulates against itself. Otherwise, you can switch to use the oscillator. The output from ring modulator 1 then goes into ring modulator 2. And as a carrier, you can use the oscillator or you can use the output from ring modulator 1. Or the weirdest thing is you can take the output from the whole device and loop it back into one of the inputs of one of these ring. Let's just do it, shall we? just brilliant. Listen to the complexity of that sound and all that's happening. That keyboard, it just put a single continuous note in there, a single tone. It's just the interference between the ring modulators is making it do this. If you don't believe me, I can push the bypass switch and just let that single tone come through. But this thing hasn't got a bypass switch. When you put a sound in there, it comes out damaged, oh yes. How random's that? Come on, be honest. Oh, I love that. Oh, gone. Don't know what happened there. There you go. That's your lot. As you probably gathered by now, though, I really like ring modulators. Thing is, I really like brown sauce, but you don't put brown sauce on everything. Don't put ring modulators on everything either. If you don't believe me, listen to this. Well, I bet there's only about 10 people in the entire world who might watch this video to the very end. If you're one of them, thank you so much for keeping me company. All the best. Bye-bye. Thank you.